screen.
Okay, we are good.
We're good to go?
Physically, mentally, we'll have
Okay.
to see how that plays out.
Then, woohoo! Hopefully, no, it is. Today is the end of economic
Month.
month.
It was supposed to be week, but
2 weeks of the United States.
8 parts.
Yes.
8 parts in total.
And it could continue,
We're
really, if
not
we
going to.
wanted to, right?
We are not going to put y'all through that.
But we could make it a month, right? With all the stuff that we have.
Oh, easily.
I mean, it
I
would be
think it
good.
already has. Because most of the weeks, out of 8 episodes, with the exception of Sundays, and that's 3 episodes per week. We've almost gone a month.
Really?
Yeah. Because, again, we dragged some up because some of it was split. But we've done 8 episodes. If we were to do 9, it would have been 3 weeks total of just economy and updates.
So if we would go tomorrow,
No. Nope, next episode is Sunday, and we already
and
swore off.
right. And what are we doing on Sunday?
Updates, there's been a few updates on some things that we needed to cover. I really want to cover that judge that I sent
Yeah.
you. I want
Yes,
to cover that on Sunday instead of the border.
right,
I figured I can do both. I'll cover it in the border as a refresher that this happened. It could also go under corrupt politicians because judges are basically politicians these days.
this is true.
I mean, we could put it in a few different areas, but I really don't want to drag them out to be month long coverage again. So, the
Well,
corrupt politicians alone could take us a month out.
right, right,
And that's just the videos. And some of these are 1 to 2 minute videos.
right. Well,
Yeah, we got a lot to go through. And this is just a handful that we have covered, videos of them being idiots and what they want to promote. And we don't even have the deep dive into each of them. This is just to skim the top
correct.
that I have set aside. And it's like, really? Really? We got this many with terrible takes on the world and how America should go. And we're just skimming the tip of it, the top,
I know.
scraping the top of the iceberg. Titanic got hit harder with the iceberg than what we've done.
Well,
And there's so much more to go.
I know. And that, to me, that's been the problem with a lot of stuff that we've done,
Yeah.
right? Because we don't profess to be experts. You'll see that we say, we're not providing financial, legal, medical, blah, blah advice. Uh, and
I'm
I
reading what Art just added to the context.
and I think now that we need to say that we're not an expert in jack shit, right? Uh,
I know if you think about this, and no matter how far how can anyone claim to be an expert on
right.
anything? And I'm not even trying to be mean. How can anybody claim to be an expert?
Mm-hmm.
We've gone, and again, we've cut down some of this stuff, sped some of this stuff up. Like Art was just saying, Econ 101 is about 18 weeks at an hour a week for class. We've done 16 hours
Oh,
average so
right.
far.
Right.
And that's not even a lecture, that's a conversation going back and forth with other people, too.
Right.
Yeah. I think we got our credits for Econ 101.
Did I
No,
get my
not even
doctoral
close.
class?
What
Am
was
I,
that?
did I get my doctoral
Well, we
thesis?
got to get through this episode, and then, yeah.
Okay. I'm just checking. Unless, I have to work harder on,
No, this one ended up being too overboard. This was an overkill episode of education and the economy.
right, right. That's crazy. I
You
didn't real
definitely passed with an A plus.
I did. Okay, cool. I mean, when I think about how much is still in the files, right,
I know.
that we haven't even touched, that's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much to do. Uh-oh.
Oh, as long as the court agrees you're an expert, then you're an expert. But that's a different thing. Yeah, seriously. Could we point out the George Floyd, the what was it? The dude who did the autopsy. What's the word? Coroner.
Coroner. Yeah.
And the other coroner saying the exact opposite. And it's like, really?
Right.
Really? Y'all,
Right.
how are either of you anywhere decent to be giving an opinion if y'all can't even come up with the same opinion?
Right.
And Art's adding in, seriously, the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my
I
God.
mean, yeah. We truly don't know anything about anything.
Power wash. They tried to take it out today. I knew they would. Okay, can I just. Is it? A little bit more.
I hear
Okay, whoa,
Danny in
whoa,
the
whoa, whoa, whoa.
background.
Yeah, trying to tell me about some bill trying to come out while we're in the middle of a live stream, and nobody in the audience really gives a shit about that. So we're all in here now. Oh, make these cookies. Yeah, make those cookies. I did wash He did wash them, and Dad did too. So go make cookies. I even told you that the other day.
Uh, here we go. It's on at the Crazy Bee household.
Oh yeah, I got my ex brother-in-law here, my ex-husband here. Got off of work early. Both my kids are here.
Uh-huh.
My daughter wanted my son to wash the pots and pans to make some oatmeal chocolate chip cookies yesterday. He went
Right.
and did all the work, and she never made
She
the
never made the
cookies.
cookies. Uh-oh. That's
So gotta
I
love my family.
I
And
just
like y'all know, family comes first. I'll deal with them.
I know.
But
I thought I wouldn't be back in time for I had the little one all morning and part of the afternoon, and they went from nursing to uh formula, and my man is not a happy camper. And
yeah.
so he has been screaming his little heart out the last couple days. And I went up there, and as my daughter in law likes to say, I sprinkled my fairy dust, also known as I don't take no shit dusts, and I had him asleep. And then she goes, well, see what happens when you put him in the bassinet. And I said, and she goes, put him in there, which I did. And he laid there for a little bit. And I also play relaxation music with the kids. So
Mm-hmm.
for like Jacob, I'll put it on and my man's gone in 2 minutes or less.
Yep.
So I'm like, I'm going to start the baby on this. And when I was there the other day, he was gone in under a minute. I had the music going, but his stomach is just so upset that he started screaming again. She goes, "See, I told you." So while she was gone, I ended up holding him the whole time. He slept, so she can't complain he didn't get his sleep time in. Uh,
Yeah, but it's still sad that little
right.
guy's feeling that way. I
Yeah.
mean, I know what it's like. Like I said before, my daughter was born with insomnia
Mm-hmm.
straight through. Never got a peaceful night's sleep with that child.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
What?
Art. I can't repeat this. Can you see what I put up on the pin?
Yeah. Yeah,
You're
they
supposed to
do.
say Dios mío.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Look,
yeah.
I just opened it.
He snuggled in there,
I
art
just
like
opened
you
it.
can't believe.
Let me see.
Let me tell you, he was right up against there and was just like hunkered down.
Well, it's a comfort and the
It
heartbeat.
is.
Remember,
Yes,
your
it is.
heartbeat is the loudest through your chest, and
Right.
that is what they are used to hearing for however long they were in the womb.
Yep.
And so,
And it
it
might
kind of
be,
makes sense.
yeah, and it's a little bit different heartbeat. It's going. Nene doesn't take any shit. Close those big eyes of yours and go to sleep. You know, I have some. I will not sing them on air, but I have some songs that I had made up over the years with Jacob about go to sleep, and some
Go to
other
sleep
stuff.
before I kick your little butt.
And
I
that's
love you to death,
kind
but I am
kind of
not playing this game.
uh
Good night,
huh.
good night, good night.
Yep, kind of end with stuff like that. I'm gonna beat your ass, something to that effect.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, been there, done that. Had
Yeah,
kids.
so I have
It's
him tomorrow.
complicated.
Yeah, it's a good thing we're off tomorrow night because I told them I'd babysit while they went out on date night. Her first real alcoholic excursion now since she's been pregnant. So I don't know what condition I'll find her coming back home in, but Eric will have Jake, who stays over every Saturday, and now I'll be up their house with the baby, so it ought to be fun. But anyway,
It says it's entirely a psychological bonding thing.
it is.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That doesn't explain the guys who are attracted to butts, like where they sat on as a child too many times.
They have
Now,
big butt, big boobs. Who I don't know. You know.
I have questions now. Let's not dig into that one
Well,
though.
maybe that could be a segment on questions that need answers.
Oh no, no,
Don't
that'll
want
lead
to
to
go
some
there.
conversations that people will take in all the wrong directions.
There you go. Well, you're the host. You got to control that. That's all.
No, the chat will have me dying, and I won't be able to say anything.
I see. Blame the chat. That's okay. Blame.
Always,
Yeah, see,
always.
she's thrown you guys under the bus already. Nothing's even happened.
If the chat's too dang funny and they make you laugh to where you're constantly losing your track of and your train of thought,
Yeah.
it is their fault
Okay.
because they take it in all the wrong directions.
I hear you. So while we're doing whatever, I'm also finally getting
Oops.
a chance to eat lunch. So we're
Well, I
having
had lunch beforehand.
good.
Buddy tried telling me there was no lunch meat. I said I beg to differ, and I went out to the fridge. My achy ass made it there, and opened the door, and right there on the top shelf beneath the whatever the hell that bag is that they have in there with something in it. Um, yeah, there's there was a big old lunch pack of lunch meat, and I'm like, yeah, okay. So butters, pickles, brown sugar ham. It was that brown sugar flavored, and oh yeah,
Oh,
that hit the spot.
I thought you were gonna say you had him take out brown sugar and sprinkle it on the. Oh,
No, no, it was
I
the
got.
already soaked in the brown sugar
I
stuff.
gotcha. I
So,
got.
all
Well,
right.
her Crazy Bee and I did not get to do our usual talk this morning, so we're
It's been a
clueless.
crazy day.
We're clueless as to kind
Well,
of
we're
what.
not clueless. Today is the Victor Davis Hansen video.
Chris
Okay.
And
Hansen.
then you also have the Liberal Hive Mind one you sent from last night.
Okay. All right.
So,
That's cool.
Oh, you should
Art
show
says
them
I'll
that
go back to
video.
reading chats and let you guys get on with it. I'm not blaming you, Art. I'm just, if I were to do a topic of psychologically why people are attracted to what they're attracted to, oh my God, I could just see the chat. I could see it with everybody in it
Mm,
going and derailing it. Now, you're not derailing today, but I could totally have seen that happening if I do a psychology of what people are attracted to and why. It
mm-hmm.
would not go well, to say the least.
Because she has no self control. That's why, Art. Don't.
Oh no, I'm just too busy reading the chat laughing my ass
uh,
off.
exactly. And that means she has no self control, Art. She can't control herself. That's okay.
I don't need to control myself. I need the audience to control themselves so I don't get distracted laughing at them.
All right, hit play.
All right, here we go.
The reports that I've seen show that the United States is one of the most asymmetrically tariff countries in the world. In other words, since World War II, it's been the position of both parties that the United States shall take a hit in trade to allow countries that are allies of the United States, but even neutrals, to develop economically at our detriment based on two realities. One, we can take the hit because we're so wealthy, and two, that newfound prosperity will eventually end up in freedom and consensuality and pro-Western sentiment. I don't think that's operative anymore. If people are going to attack him personally or the country, the United States, the embodiment of him as president, that he's going to reply in kind, so they will cease doing it. But I've been watching various foreign leaders that have been bullying the United States, and I noticed that they calmed down during the campaign with the idea that Trump might be elected, especially President Erdogan of Turkey. He has not been as boisterous or saber rattling against Trump as you would think, given he would see Trump as more likely to stand up to Turkey than Biden. Or free trade allows everybody to benefit, but if the free trade is not fair, primarily the Chinese, but also the Europeans, if they have tariffs on goods on American products and we don't have tariffs on the same identical American product, European import, then he's going to put a tariff to equalize it. And then if the free marketer comes back to Donald Trump and says, well, you can't do that because they are more effective, or this particular product is done cheaper and benefits the world because it can be done better over there, then he will say, well, then we're going to find something that we do that's better than what they do, but they don't play fair. So I think what they're trying to say is they're going to look at the totality of import and exports, look at the various tariffs, and as a general rule, and I don't think I'm being chauvinistic, but if you drive through my hometown, I will see 6 or 7 major factories have been closed for 20 years, gang activity, poverty, per capita income of $16,000 a year. When I was in high school, it was booming. We made trailers, we made hydraulic lifts, we had one of the biggest canneries in the country. My question to all of us is, were they tariffs at all? Traditionally, a tariff, remember, is a policy that a government uses to prop up an anemic industry, at least an industry that can't compete globally or versus vis-a-vis a trading partner. And traditional economists say this is terrible because what happens is that if you don't have free global trade, then the consumer is paying more for a product that is inefficient because it's shielded from competition. But is Donald Trump really doing that? Is he saying our tobacco industry or our shoe industry is weak and I have to prop it up? He's not really. These are not, what I'm getting at is they're not really tariffs. So what are they? Well, to answer that question, let's look at the countries he's targeted: Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, China, the EU, Canada, and Mexico. In all of those cases, is he trying to protect a particular industry? I don't think he is. So if you take Venezuela and Colombia, he's saying that you people deliberately empty your jails and you sent them to the United States, sent them being felons, violent felons, and you're not going to do that anymore. And they said, we're not taking them back. He said, you're going to take them back or I'm going to put a tariff. So it was a lever of diplomacy and it worked. They backed down completely. Then he said to Panama, we had a treaty with you signed during the last year of the Carter administration, which you were going to give us in response to our historic role in creating the Panama Canal at great cost, which we gave to you certain conditions of which you violated. You invited in our arch enemy and conducted this silk and roll agreement with them, and suddenly they have concessions at both ends of the canal, and you knew what you were doing, and yet you took advantage of us. So you're going to have a tariff, and of course it worked. Now there's negotiations, and China may be out of the picture somewhat. Same thing happened with Canada and Mexico. We said to the Canadians, you're supposed to pay 2% of your NATO, of your GDP for military defense. That was your NATO promise. You broke it. You pay 1.37 in defense. Canada used to have the fifth greatest Navy in the world. What are you doing? Well, I can tell you what you're doing. You're relying on the United States nuclear shield to protect your North American territories and to keep the American Navy keeping the Atlantic and the Pacific and the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf all free of pirates and hostile belligerents and terrorists. And we do that. We subsidize you. And we pay 16% of NATO's budget. We're just one of, 30 nations. And you're running up a $50 billion surplus. 50 billion. And you look at your tariffs versus ours, and they're far more punitive and they're far greater. And you won't control the border. You think it's funny, Mr. Trudeau, that people are coming across this once free and open border to take advantage of our derelict immigration policy? And we said the same thing to Mexico. What are you doing, Mexico? Under the NAFTA agreements, it was supposed to smooth out trade. You've gone from $2 billion surplus to $167 billion. And you are a dumping ground for Chinese to get around trade policies by assembling Chinese products and other countries and then coming under the free trade agreements that we've made with you to our disadvantage. That's not the end of it. That would be enough. But you're receiving $63 billion from expatriates that send remittances, and they're being subsidized by state and local and federal government taxpayers in health, education. And that's not the end of it. You're getting $20 or $30 billion by your cartels that, in fungible terms, help your economy. You're getting over $200 billion. And what are we getting out? We're getting 75,000 dead Americans. We're getting 12 million illegal aliens in the last 4 years, and we are getting cheap Chinese assembled products dumped in our country. And we're not going to do it anymore. So he threatened them with a tariff. As far as China and the European Union, you said the Chinese, you're running $200 to $300 billion.
I like that he's calling out all these countries. Um,
Yeah, I was going to ask you to stop there a second.
yeah, Art's actually got a few comments thrown up in here
Yeah,
too.
and I wanted to address those. And his first one, he says, I don't agree with the idea that we're being ripped off. America chose to allow trade to work the way it does over 30 years. Only now have we decided we're being ripped off.
Yep.
I disagree. I think that they had the policies and that in place and that nobody followed through on it. They just let things go. And I think on Trump's first term, he identified that this was a problem, but he never really got to work on it the way he is right now. And when you look at the numbers, when you look at what's being presented here, we are getting ripped off. We have been paying the most money uh, for a lot of things. How can you say that 16% is going to NATO when all these other countries aren't putting their fair share in? Why are we the ones doing that? Um, why was the Panama Canal Agreement in Carter's time? Why was that broken?
Because we let them. There was no consequence right away.
Exactly. And whose fault was that?
Our politicians and us for voting them in and allowing them to stay elected into office to do this shit.
Correct. And that's been the problem this whole time. There has been things in place that has said uh, the way things are to work, but the politicians that have been voted in, nobody ever followed through. Nobody ever held anybody under the gun, under the fire, to make sure that this was done.
Hmm.
So who do we go back and blame?
I blame all of our politicians and the people who kept voting them in.
Mm-hmm.
Every generation. So technically, Art's not wrong. It is our own fault for not doing something about it 30 years
It is
ago.
correct. Go lay down. Go.
It's, again, people not paying attention to what's going on in politics because it's complicated, it's confusing, it's
Mm-hmm.
annoying. Um, and it's just one of those main things. But that's one thing I wondered about. Why does the you haven't been paying to NATO, so I'm going to raise the tariffs on you? That doesn't make sense to me. I when he brought that up in the video.
Well,
And I know you've touched on it too a little bit.
I think
NATO doesn't really have much to do with tariffs.
right, but I think at some point you're going to try to use whatever you can to have leverage. You know what I mean? Whether you agree with it or you disagree with it, at some point, in order to get somebody to do something that they have not done that they're supposed to be doing, you might find some other alternative means in order to put leverage against them to get them to
Hmm.
do what you want. And think about that in your, you know, how you deal with your kids or your spouse, or you want your kids to do something and one way doesn't work, and you say, well, guess what, if you don't, we're not going to go to the park on Sunday. That's leverage. um, and I think that's what Trump is doing here. Again, I'm saying he has been the ball buster, whether you agree or disagree. He's using everything at his disposal to get these countries to snap in line and to do what they've agreed to do many years ago.
Um, Art also brought up about when China took over the Panama Canal ports. They've
Hmm.
been in charge since 1996. Why is it just now?
I
Why
don't.
didn't America offer to take over back then? He brought that up. And why would we sit back and let China do this and then turn around and complain about it for a
What?
decade and all
Okay.
this other stuff until
Okay.
Trump decided to do it?
Because why now? Why would Trump want to do it now?
Well, China's about to take over Taiwan.
That, and China is also possibly going to be in bed with who?
Russia.
Yep. And Russia and China might go up against who?
Basically everyone and anyone. Ukraine doesn't really count
Ukraine. Well,
anymore.
I know, but that's the big one. And if they go Ukraine, then the rest of the world's supposed to go up against them. Hence World War III, right?
Fundamentally.
Yeah. So I think that's why Trump's trying to stop China.
It's just again, I wish they would have headed this off long ago.
I know they should have. Somebody should have. I don't know how there could be so many people in frickin' politics that
We're
we.
talking literally from the middle of the frickin' Clinton administration
Uh-huh.
onward. Why? Uh, it doesn't make a lot of
It
sense.
doesn't. It's probably, I'll bet you any money, Crazy B, if we started looking into this crap with that USAID money that was floating around, I'll bet you there's been kickbacks, payouts, you know, you do this, I'll do that. I bet you we'd find that all over the place. I
Art
get.
has we tend to like an enemy to fight. That doesn't mean the argument is true. They may not actually be an enemy, but maybe we're making them into one type of thing.
mm, I don't know. I've done a lot of reading about China and Russia getting together.
How much of that could be propaganda or lack of
Could be.
choice?
It could be, but do you want to take that chance?
Well, I mean, look what they said about Cuba. And Cuba
Yeah.
never once did anything towards us. They did stupid stuff to their own people,
Right.
but they never once attacked America. But yet we
But,
had missiles pointing at them because of it.
but that doesn't mean that you don't have things put in place. You
Well,
know,
in that case, we should have nukes pointed at every direction
no,
around the
no,
globe, whether
no,
we
no,
like, whether we consider them an ally or not, because at any minute they could turn on us.
no. I'm just saying, take a look at the Panama Canal. There was a treaty that was put in place, and that was not being fulfilled. So Trump stepped in and said, you know what? While it's on my watch, this is getting fixed. You know, and that's basically what he's been doing everywhere. He's like, on my watch, we're doing this. Whether you agree or disagree with them, he's made the decision that while I'm in charge, changes are going to be made. Just like Biden did with opening up the border, with stopping the Keystone pipeline, with.
Opening the border should have been considered an act of
I know,
of treason,
I know,
personally.
I know. All the crap that Obama did, all of them, every single one of them had when they were in charge. Just look at their executive orders, then go look at Congress, go look at the Senate, every single one of them. When they were in charge,
Well,
somebody
we have
said,
videos going back to the 90s where Nancy Pelosi and Chuck
uh
Schumer were supporting tariffs.
right.
They were pushing for this stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
now they want to argue against it.
And same thing with
It's very hard to
open
know
bo-
what's happening in another country, especially a dictatorship that makes it easy to demonize the country.
yeah. I
That's
mean, same,
true.
the same thing with the border. Schumer, Biden himself, uh, Harris, Clinton, all of them were like the border needs to be closed and secured.
But they never did anything to do it, to back
No,
it up.
and now now what do they say? Open border. So
And that's bothersome. That really does bother me.
yeah, well, if you want to be bothered, today I watched a thing that they really believe that AOC's it going to be it.
I don't think so.
I pray not. She was at some rally where she drew in a huge crowd. I'll tell you.
The last time they tried saying someone had a huge crowd, it was an AI generated crowd.
Well, I hope that's the case because it was kind of scary. But
Mm, I don't trust a lot right
I-
now.
don't you think that these countries all talk about the United States?
Well, I'm sure they do, and they all talk shit about us, but
Right.
it is what it is. We talk shit about them.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying in reference to what Art says. Uh, those countries all have preconceived ideas about us. And again,
Well, we haven't exactly been up forth and
oh hell
forward with
no.
what we do. We're
Right.
just as secretive.
Mm-hmm. And
And again,
again,
how can you trust your neighbors when you're constantly paranoid?
right. And plus all the stuff that we've done where I've told you, we need to keep our nose out of their business. It's not our country to run. It's not for us to tell them, you have to have DEI in place. You have to have a, trans woman, in a school program. You have to have a Sesame Street character a certain way. That's not for us to tell them. So,
Hold on. Or had something more to say. Now Trump complains that giving people here a very brief hearing is just too much work. That has shades of 30s Germany. If they're here illegally and they needed to be deported to begin with, then that should happen. I didn't know, like, this is one thing that, like, I've never understood. They're not even an American citizen. Why do they? I mean, if they, we had it set up where you remain in Mexico until a judge can decide whether or not you qualify for asylum. And now it's like we have to have, like, what, house them, give them everything for free until they see a judge, the way Biden had it set up.
hmm
And judges were God knows how many years out. I don't mind the remain in Mexico. I don't mind asylum. I don't like a bunch of gang members running across our border and just being said, "Okay, well, we're going to leave you here in our country until further notice."
yeah, Art's not going to like me when we get he
Now,
might,
again, if they were an American citizen or they were on their way to becoming an American citizen, already started the green card process, and they committed a crime, then they have a right to a hearing.
right?
But a lot of these illegals that came across the border weren't even trying to become American citizens. They just ran across the border to sneak over here and get a bunch of stuff. They all were claiming asylum, but half of them were gang members and no one had proper vetting of them. This should have all been done beforehand. Move them to a third country, make them wait, do the vetting process like it should have been. They are
Well,
still entitled to a hearing because that's required under the Constitution. We let them in, which then entitles them to a hearing to assure they are a person subject to deportation. What about all the ones that snuck across, didn't actually go through the port of entry?
that's the issue. They're illegals. They are
There's a
considered.
bunch that never, even though we have a bunch that the courts were tracking under Biden, there was still a bunch that never even went through the ports that way. So what do we do with those people?
The issue is they snuck across. They are considered illegal aliens, subject to immediate deportation.
The ones who came across didn't even stop at a border port of entry are the ones that I don't mind not having an expedient process through the court system to get deported because they never checked in at the port of entry to begin with. That's the ones that I have an issue with. The ones who came through the port of entry and came through, they got the here's your asylum date, we'll see you as soon as possible. That's different. But the ones who literally just snuck on by, didn't give a shit, and started coming over doing whatever they please, that's different.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Once they are here, they get a hearing to determine their status, then they can be deported. Even though they came across illegally, they snuck across, didn't stop at a point. That seems so overkill on tax dollars.
Hmm. That.
That's where I have an issue. Is if you snuck across, you get deported back to the back of the line until further notice. I'm not saying you can't come back, but I think they should be deported to the back of the line at the port of entry and
Well,
they have to wait.
why don't? Well, we have a whole segment on the border update as well as illegal immigration. So we'll argue this out there.
Yeah.
Art, I hope we still remain friends.
Oh no, Art says I know it sucks, but welcome to our constitution.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
We need to make some changes to fill some loopholes that people are doing.
yeah.
We really need to make these changes. And I think we can be more than reasonable. Like I said, yeah, they snuck across, kick them to the back of the line, and they can still try to come in.
Nah, you
I know
can't.
you're different on that, but
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I said, I've worked with people who were
I
here
know you
illegally
have.
as a
I know.
teenager.
I know.
I get their plight. I get their stories. I have heard things that most people don't get to hear. I covered it, went back under questions that need answers when I was covering the cartels out
Oh,
of
right,
Mexico.
right.
Oh, trust me, I totally get their plight. That does not mean you come across without giving your story.
Now, just remember, I totally understand their plight as well. I,
Mhm.
however, am coming from having my youngest being up in New York City and seeing what started there. And
Yeah.
you know, and we'll once we get there, we'll unveil some other information. But there's a good friend of mine now that we had a major blow up issue over where she lived in Texas, and I'm over on the East Coast, and the arguments over illegal immigration. I mean, you were there for some of them, Crazy B, and
Mhm.
uh, ultimately, once things started to unravel in her city, when they became a sanctuary city,
And
and
all now everybody sees the problems that
oh
we've all
yeah,
complained about.
yep, and we were already seeing it here. I mean, I had they flew in, remember, two plane loads of Afghans when that whole debacle happened and the
Mhm.
U.S. soldiers were killed. Yeah, Biden flew in two airplanes of Afghans in the middle of the night into our city and had them housed and, you know, clothed and education and health care.
And I
And
bet there was zero background checks on any of these people.
I would venture to probably agree with you. Um, and
And
I told,
again,
and
I
I
get. Oh, hold on.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was trying to read what Art had to say.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, it says the problem isn't the hearings; it's that Biden let in millions, and now who are now entitled to hearings because he let them in, and that knowing we didn't have enough judges. And but then I also got footage of a bunch of these idiot politicians wanting to reject proof of citizenship to vote. So now we got illegal people voting, and there's people who've admitted to voting illegally. And this is again where it's not just about waiting for them, it's about the crimes that are committed in the meantime. It's about the drugs that are being increased, the human trafficking increased by it.
How
There is
about it?
so much
How,
bigger
yeah. How
problems
about
that
it's the
stemmed.
How about it's housing them? How about it's educating them? How about it's giving them health care? How about it's giving them food? How about
I
it's
know when my
job?
grandparents and my when my great grandparents and them all moved here, there was no social services program. You
No,
were
hell
on the
no, there
streets
wasn't.
until you
Yeah,
found a job.
exactly. If
And
you
I
didn't
don't,
have enough,
I get my bleeding heart doesn't ever want to see a family struggle like that. But in this case, we can't afford to keep doing this.
well, my bleeding heart has bled out because I have friends and I have very dear family that can't put food on their table right now because of what's going on. And
Well, it's
until,
one of many things that is part of the problem.
right,
It's
but
not the
that
only problem.
it isn't, but it is one of the top ones for me when I know that their struggle. There's a family that is barely scraping by, barely. And
Hmm.
when
Well, I've even told everyone my story. We're scraping by
right,
just by the skin of our teeth,
right,
and it's again not fair, but we make too much to qualify for assistance, but we
right,
don't make enough to cover it all on our own.
right. But yet, wouldn't you like to have that $1,300 card every month? Wouldn't
Actually, no, because then I'd be trapped to them. I'd rather have a job. I'd
right.
rather be able to work than depend on the
Well,
government for
if
money
you
each
have
month
that, if you
until
have
I can
that,
finally find a job. But then when you finally find that job, you're still going to have that gap time where you make too much to get assistance, but barely enough to get by.
yeah, but hold on. They're making good money on those delivery scooters. You know, you could have Danny drive and and you deliver, throw the
I
package or
can't get in
whatever.
and out of those cars. Are you kidding?
No, it's a scooter. What do you
That's even worse on my back. I can barely get in and out of the Escalade.
All right, that we'll save all this shit for our argument
But
when
Art
we're
says,
done.
trust me, I don't like it, but I believe in the law and the Constitution. Well, I also believe we can change the law in the
Yeah.
Constitution and we need to fill some
And I
holes.
believe there's other workarounds. So that's where I'm at. We got other ways to handle this problem.
Oh yeah, and again, I'm not. I don't want to turn this into a completely border thing because we're supposed to be talking about tariffs. But
Right.
I agree, we need to abide by our law, but we also need to fill in all those loopholes.
Hmm.
We really do.
And
Or
again,
we need to reword it so it's more concise that motherfuckers come through that port of entry only. Oh,
and
yes, Phil.
well, that's what it's supposed to be.
Oh,
But
hold on, hold on.
No,
Phil
what
wants
was
to
real?
chime in. What do you want to chime in?
I just want to say about the home buying situation. There is there's I was telling him to there's an additional. It's a little bit extra, but it's like life insurance, but it's for the home.
Homeowners insurance.
It's something like that. But what it does is something happens to him, it pays this house off.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Yes, and he already has a life insurance plan in place
So I got to look
that
into
pays
it
out
too.
to me, and unless something happens to me, and then we'll transfer it over to the kids.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we've been working. Yeah, I've been getting all that stuff set up. Are you kidding?
Yeah. This is one particular separate from
Yeah, it's a yeah, basically it's a trust fund
Yeah.
that you pay into that pays off the house if something happens to the homeowner
Just that's how
for the children and the
that's how
remaining spouse or
that's how
family.
Vanessa's mom did for Vanessa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why she was able to keep her parents' place. Yep.
Yeah. I'm out of here. I gotta go to work.
Alrighty, we'll catch you later. So, actually, that was something that I will cover down the road, because I'm going to be going through the process of learning how to buy a house, and I think that's a great thing for questions that need answers,
Mm-hmm.
is to talk about the process. But there is an additional type of homeowners insurance that you can get. That's basically a trust fund that if something happens to the homeowner and there are surviving children, either of disability or minor age, that if something happens to the owner, the survivors will get the house, and that insurance fund will pay off the remaining balance of the mortgage and everything. And then you're just a free and clear, pay your property tax.
Right.
And that is something we're definitely looking into. We're
Mm.
definitely going to be looking into that because Danny's up there in age. I don't have an income, and the kids would have to learn how to share a house and work together and get this to, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm a Cecilia style organization textualist. I've got no problem with changing the law, but until you do, it is what it is.
Oh,
Exactly.
you
Which
know
is
what,
why
Art?
I bitch about our politicians.
Art, it's Friday afternoon. Please don't give me a headache.
He's talking about the Sicilian.
I know he is. I know. It's so frustrating.
I
Again,
know.
who do we frickin' blame here? Who's sitting on their ass and not doing
The
anything with
voters.
this?
And
Well, yeah,
getting people to move and become a politician in exchange for the BS that we've got in place. If I
yeah,
could physically do it, I would.
so would I in a heartbeat.
If
It's
I
not that hard.
physically could become a politician, I would.
It's not that
There are two
hard.
types of cookies, one with peanut butter, one without peanut
No
butter.
peanut butter for me because I'm allergic to the
You
peanut butter we
have
have in the house.
raisins in yours. Oatmeal
Okay,
raisins.
oatmeal raisin. Ooh, yummy. Thank you, darling. Yeah, all the peanut butter we have in the house has pine nuts in it or a trace of pine nut, and I can't eat it. And it's like, oh, I want peanut butter. But yeah, honestly, back to the if I could run as a politician, I would. I'm
I know
so fed up with these
it,
politicians.
yeah, again, Congress not doing their job.
Would they let me run from home? Could I run Congress from home? Oh wait, no, 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 remote or proxy voting. Damn it.
I think that's what they're currently doing, aren't they? They revoted to have the proxy votes in that. I'm pretty
Justin Antonin Scalia. Oh, Scalia.
Yeah, that's what
Oh
I
my god, I
said.
read it wrong. Oh my god, my eyes. I am so sorry.
He
I
said
gotta clean my
Scalia.
glasses. Holy shit. I read that wrong. I read that wrong.
She's okay. It's okay. She
Thank
didn't
you for
hear me.
adding that to correct my poor
Yeah,
brain.
she
I'm
didn't
cleaning
hear
my
me either.
glasses.
Yeah, she didn't hear me either. That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, we're on a tangent. Let's get off the tangent because I'm all worked up now about
Mother.
illegals, and here
Let's
we
hit
go.
play.
Quick
Yeah, hit
pause.
play.
Why do I got a quick
When's supposed to come in?
Give me a second and I'll mute and I'll look at it for
Okay.
you, okay? 1 second, folks.
on
I'm
the
going to
call.
hit play. I'll be right here.
Trade surpluses, and we know what you've been doing. In addition, you serially steal American technology. You conduct cyber attacks on some of our corporations and companies, and you dump product here at below the cost of production to create market share, or you target strategic industries of ours to put them out of business, and you want us to offshore and outsource, and you've hollowed out the United States industrial belt. So all we ask is reciprocity. Whatever you do, we will do. But he's not protecting an individual industry, and he's saying the same thing to the EU. How was it, Europe, that you are now $500 billion running a $500 billion trade surplus with the United States? And yet we contribute an inordinate amount to your defense. We have an ocean between you and us. You're right on the border with some very dangerous people in Ukraine. And yet we are paying an inordinate amount. And we've been doing this for nearly 80 years, and you don't listen to us. Let me just finish by saying this was not the first effort to rectify asymmetrical and unfair policies that involve drugs, illegal immigration, dumping product, huge trade surpluses, not paying your military responsibility in terms of military investments and defense expenditures. This was the last desperate move. We have tried through conferences, bilateral talks, threats, and all of these people have said, basically, if I can excuse the vernacular, heck with you, screw you. And so Donald Trump finally, in desperation, said, I have a tool called a tariff. But in conclusion, I'm not sure it was a tariff at all. It was just a diplomatic tool. And I think the Wall Street Journal and a lot of our economists need to calm down, because he's not trying to go back to the 1930s, which may have caused the Great Depression, the reciprocal blanket tariff. He's trying to restore fairness and symmetry to the world in every aspect of that word. China has prohibitive tariffs. So does Vietnam. So does Mexico. So does Europe. So do a lot of countries. So does India. But if tariffs are so destructive of their economies, why is China booming? We haven't run a trade surplus since 1975, 50 years. So it wasn't suddenly we woke up and said, it's unfair, we want commercial justice. No, we've been watching this happen for 50 years. It's been going on. April 3rd, Donald Trump announced it as Liberation Day. And by that he meant we were going to be liberated from asymmetrical tariffs of the last 50 years. And it was going to inaugurate a new, what he called, golden age of trade parity, greater investment in the United States, but mostly greater job opportunities and higher paying jobs for Americans. And yet the world seemed to erupt in anger. It was very strange. Even people on the libertarian right and of course the left were very angry. The Wall Street Journal pilloried Donald Trump. But here's my question. China has prohibitive tariffs. So does Vietnam. So does Mexico. So does Europe. So do a lot of countries.
Wait, so by prohibitive tariffs, that means they can tariff us for buying their goods, but they don't ever buy anything from us. What's prohibited to buy American products? Is that what they mean by this?
That
Correct.
smells like hypocrisy.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
buddy, it is hypocrisy. My son's over there. It smells like hypocrisy. Yes, it is. And I just wanted to make sure I'm hearing this right.
Because then we're losing money.
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I'm hearing it. Maybe because there's so much fluid in my ears. I thought maybe I'm hearing it wrong. So yeah, it's but again, even if you completely free and open trade, nothing guarantees other countries will buy your products for various reasons. That's the flaw in the argument that removing tariffs will do anything.
That's
Ah,
correct. That's correct. There is no guarantee on any of it. But remember, there's no guarantee that we're going to buy their stuff either.
yeah. Just wish there was some better competitors.
Exactly. And so, if there could be more of a fair and balanced trade, I mean, look at the deficits, $500 billion. That's a lot of freaking money. And the United States has been footing that for over 50 years. What are you saying? We're supposed to lay down and take that? What okay, if you don't like the idea of a tariff, and I keep saying this, if they don't like the idea of a tariff, this has been going on for 50 years that we've been getting screwed. What is the other alternative? Give me some other solutions. I've not seen anybody offer any other thing up. That's all I'm asking. Where is the other side or anybody that's bitching about this? Where is your solution? What else should we try before we do the tariffs? I'm waiting. We'll wait.
That is a good question. Is there an alternative we can actually use? That is a very interesting question. In
Thank
the
you.
meantime, I'll hit play.
Go ahead. You think about it. I'd like to know.
So does India. But if tariffs are so destructive of their economies, why is China booming? How did India become an economic powerhouse when it has these exorbitant tariffs on American imports? How did Vietnam, of all places, become such a different country, even though it has these prohibitive tariffs? Why isn't Germany, before its energy problems, why wasn't it a wreck? It's got tariffs on almost everything that we send them. How is the EU even functioning with these tariffs? I thought tariffs destroyed an economy, but they seem to like them, and they're angry that they're no longer asymmetrical. Apparently, our people who are tariffing us think tariffs improve their economy. Maybe they're right. I don't know. The second thing is, why would you get angry at the person who is reacting to the asymmetrical tariff and not the people who inaugurated the tariff? Why is Canada mad at us when it's running a $63 billion surplus and it has tariffs on some American products at 250 250%. Doesn't it seem like the people who started this asymmetrical, if I could use the word trade war, should be the culpable people, not the people who are reluctantly reacting to it? Sort of like Ukraine and Russia. Russia invaded Ukraine. Do we blame Ukraine for defending itself and trying to reciprocate? No, we don't. We don't blame America because it finally woke up and said, whatever they tariff us, we're going to tariff them. Which brings up another question. Are our tariffs really tariffs? It seems to be on everybody's mind, but explicitly on Donald Trump's mind. That's the one common denominator that explains his interest on Panama and not to turn over our key transit from east to west coast to China. China has no business there. And the same thing with Greenland. He's worried about the Chinese having access to the Arctic Circle. He's worried about their trade surplus. He's worried about circumventing unfair trade by assembling their products in Mexico. He's worried about them sending raw product of fentanyl. He's worried about their surrogates, the sort of mad pit bulls like North Korea and increasingly Iran, that he cuts the leash every once in a while and says, he being China, go to it, cause chaos. He's worried that China is intimidating countries in the Pacific and in Asia. Some of our strongest friends, Australia, South Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines, Vietnam, saying things like the United States.
Actually, China has been a serious threat to Australia since for
Oh,
World War II. They've always been concerned about them.
and
Um,
Australia is becoming more and more sugar. What's the word I'm looking for? They're having their freedom of speech is being limited, very similar to what Britain is trying to pull. Um, they're not as free of a country as you would expect them to be.
well, but that's I'm not talking about that. That's what their country, based on what England does, Australia basically
Right,
does.
right.
I'm talking even before that. China has caused a lot of problems, and there's more. Like you've talked about those Chinese police departments here in America. There's actually more in Australia than there are in America,
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's more Chinese people down in Australia than there is here.
and not including the people from Vietnam and South
Right,
Korea that are over there as
right,
well.
right.
So yeah, it is one of those things. And art added because though the countries used tariffs to preserve their industry where we did not. We chose to let our industry go overseas. Eh, that was the alternative, but now we got to try and incentivize people to bring industry back here.
And that's why
That's a
put tariffs on.
yeah, that's what incentivizes people to come back. It's a no-win situation because we let it go for so long.
Hmm.
I
And
just hope it's not going to backfire on us. That's all we can do at this point is hope it does not backfire.
well, you can always go back to the same old if it doesn't work. I mean, he'll get voted out of office, and a border will be flush open. You know, we'll go back to the same old, like the way it used to be. Trump will just be an anomaly. Just some
Well, again, this was also all recorded before all of this has started taking place. And a lot of countries have decided to work with us.
right over
And this is
75. Yes,
older info about this. And so far, it is looking like there's going to be more countries that are agreeing to work with us versus not.
right.
And
And I think
Mexico has agreed to let us come in and help deal with the cartels to get the tariffs lowered, and they're hopefully going to get these drugs under control.
right.
So, I mean, we are seeing some of it working. It's just, who China's the scary one, I guess. Everyone's worried about.
I really, I'm sorry. I give a good shit about China. I mean, I, I understand product wise, but I told you, I'm at the point where we need to take our shit back from China. We need to do our own pharmaceuticals. We
Actually, most pharmaceuticals come out of India, not
there,
China.
there's a lot from China. There is a lot from India too. How about we need to have our U.S. flags made here and not from China?
That's another good one. That
You
is a
know what I
good
mean? Like,
point. Why are our flags made
yeah,
in China?
give me a freaking break. I mean, I could go on with a list. It's time. And yes, it makes some. I'm not saying bring every single thing that we got to
Yeah,
have every single item
just
out of
a
the pit,
decent
but
amount to keep us afloat too.
exactly,
That's what I've always asked.
exactly. But we're
MJ is
devastated.
here. So hello, MJ. Well, you're here. And he added in, we wanted cheap goods and we outpriced ours on the global market since the 70s.
Correct. That's
And
exactly
but this is again stuff that should not have happened. We wanted to, we wanted to be more involved in the market on the global level, but it ended up becoming a bit unfair. But it's like, do we really? And again, though, what about these videos that China's not doing as good, as what we think? But do we take the risk of assuming that and then getting blindsided by it being inaccurate? There's so much more to this that it's like my head hurts. My head
I
hurts.
don't think we should ever take the risk that China is not doing that well. Uh,
Especially with how long they've had to grow their military.
that's right.
We
When you
told Japan buzz off after World War II.
right, right.
Not allowed to have a military here. You can use our team.
Uh-huh. I mean, when you see the video, I mean, again, it could all be, smoke and mirrors, the emperor's new clothes type situation where, they are putting on a good show with the military and, their industries and all of that. But, are you willing to take that risk?
Hold on, I gotta see this. Art says, I agree we need to return to production of the US, but it's going to take some time and a better plan than Trump has. It probably will need a better plan down the road, but right now, let's at least get the ball rolling.
Right. Right now, it's the only plan. Was there a plan with Biden? Was there a plan with Obama, Clinton, Bush?
No, actually, we
Probably.
lost more jobs under them.
Yeah, sugar. I gotta go find a new power cord, or I will be disconnected shortly.
Okay,
I
I'm
don't.
gonna go ahead and hit play. Actually, hold on. Trump is also looking to break up BRICS countries, which I've heard that as well, and it seems to be working.
Yeah,
From what I've caught on more recent updates,
they
and
should be
then
broken up.
hold on. There is more to these tariffs than just goods. It is also finding out um our true allies. That's an interesting way of trying to find your allies. Asking is a really good start, but let's hit play. We got to try to get through this because we got one other video we got to discuss later that hopefully we'll be able to get to today. So let me get through these last 7 minutes or so.
Is in decline, you better cut a deal. Essentially, they're like Japan in 1940, and they're trying to refashion something like the Japanese East Asian co-prosperity sphere that was a mercantile system aimed at the West, which soon they were to be at war at. So is it all depression? No, what Trump is saying is for us to stop this, we've got to balance our budget. We can't spend $3 billion a day on interest. If we're going to do this, we have to have trade parity. We can't keep running up $1.5 trillion in trade surplus. And when he looks at us at home, he says the ESG, this equity, social governance, that we don't look at productivity in stocks, but whether they're politically correct, or DI and woke, this anti-American, it doesn't work. The Chinese love it. We will not be competitive. If we look at the border, you can't have an open border with 30 million illegal aliens. That is a drag on productivity. You have to have security. That is, were they preemptive? Were they leveled against countries that had no tariffs against us? Were they punitive? No. They're almost leveled on autopilot. Whatever a particular country tariffs us, we reciprocate and just mirror image them. And they go off anytime that country says, it was a mistake. We're sorry. You're an ally. You're a neutral. We're not going to tariff this American product. And then we say, fine. Then the autopilot ceases and the automatic tariff ends. In other words, it's their choice, not ours. We're just reacting to what they did, not what we did. So what he's doing is, in all these areas, is identifying the threat that China poses and why we, with an open, transparent, and capitalist society, can achieve our preeminence or guarantee our preeminence if we make changes. And it's not necessarily a pessimistic picture. I'll just give you some statistics. Yes, China has 2,000 fighters. We have 1,500. But fighters aren't the only story. They're bombers. They're logistic planes. They're intelligence planes. When you look at all of the U.S. Air Force, we have about 1,500 more planes. And we have over 500 fifth generation fighters. I think they only have about 60. Yes, they are building 200.
I want to read this because it does make sense. Countries don't have friends, they have interests. They will do what's in their best interest. That may not be something that benefits the US. And that's true. But we also have to look out for our best interest, the way that those countries look out for their best interest. I mean, whatever can be said about them should, if you, the way I always say it, if you can't say it about everyone, it's biased. If you can't equally say it. So if it's China's looking out for their best interest, it may not include us. Well, we need to do the same. We need to look out for our best interest, whether it helps China or not. And this is where it's a struggle. And like I said, at least we're getting the ball rolling in the right direction. The question is, can we smooth this out a lot faster and hopefully get it working for the long run? Um, I'm always amazed how people can explain that Trump is doing what Trump is doing when Trump himself has never explained it adequately. I agree. Trump has never actually explained this. Everybody else keeps explaining it. That is an interesting one, but I would like to see something good come of this. Whether again,
He also has it, you might not like that how he expresses it, but he also has a team that could probably express it to your interest. So for
actually, I think part of the video that we're going to be covering next from Liberal Hive Mind,
uh
the Steve Bessett or Bennett dude,
right.
does break this down a little bit more.
So there's, you might not like the way he says it or the way he expresses it based on your knowledge base or whatever. But there is somebody on his team that, trust me, will say it that you understand. Trump is a, hard ass, hardcore, down to earth, ball buster type of guy. He's not going to be the professors or assistant professor giving us the correct terminology. He's going to say the wrong thing many times. Uh, but is I think the intention with the team is in the right place, and that's what I'm looking at, is at the overall arching uh, group that he has surrounding him, and who is, who's the ones that are actually formulating the plans, putting the plans into place. That's where the concern lies. Oh my gosh, and I'm going to be on a 1 inch leash. Uh-oh, that's not good. Do do do. Anyway, let's see if we can stay connected. If not, Crazy B, I'll have to call in on the phone. All right. I don't.
Alrighty.
I don't know what I did to my cord. It's brand new. Do, do.
Art says, I agree. I want to see something good come out of this, but after 30 years of dealing with the markets and the economy, I just don't see how that's going to work. I don't see this working overnight. I'm being realistic. You've heard me say it before. I could see this taking a decade or more to actually pan out
Right.
to
I am
our benefit.
right.
This is not going to be an overnight change.
I agree.
This is something that I've even admitted. It's taken almost a century to get this bad. It's going to take almost a century to get it fixed. Hi, Brent. Good
Yeah.
to see you.
Hi, Brent.
So,
So that
yeah,
means, yeah. So that means that whoever comes up next, no matter who it is, right? And this could all be for naught.
yeah. And that's alarming to me. I don't like that we're so whimsical every 4 years.
Yep.
This can change
Yep.
every 4 to 8 years. That bothers me a lot.
That's why I'm for the changing the whole term limit thing. So, but that's another story.
Yep.
Oh, I'm on less than a. Oh man, I'm.
Okay, I'm going to hit play. You keep trying to find a better system.
Yeah, this is not good. Maybe
Okay.
I'll go to the office and try logging on there. I'm
All
in.
right.
I'm in trouble. All right, I'll be back.
Yep. And I agree, Art. That's the thing is in 4 years, That's what we're complaining about. We need to find enough politicians to keep the ball rolling in the right direction instead of reversing it and all this other nonsense. That's what I'm worried about. I am worried about all of that because we're all thinking too short term in America. Nobody's thinking long term. Again, this is where we're not playing the same game as China and some of these other places. We're not, they're playing chess, or they're playing long term chess. We're playing checkers, move by move, not really strategizing much. And this is again where I have the issue with the way this country's been run for decades. I mean, that's why I say, you keep hearing me say it's been a long term coming. We're talking about a century of bad decisions by politicians and presidents that have landed us here. I keep going back to the 1 century mark because there's so many things that add together to get us to where the hell we are. And we've got to find the next century's worth of politicians to keep us moving in the right direction, which is why I said if I could be a politician from bedbound, I would. I would literally sit here and argue this shit. I would prefer that we had more educated people than me who understand and can go in and argue how to keep the ball rolling. But the problem is, not many are going to. Yeah, they're playing Go. Yes, I've heard of that game. I've never played it, but yes, it is the Asian version of chess. Exactly. We're not even playing the same game as them, and we're not even looking at it from the same perspective. How can we play in a world market if we don't understand the world? That's what I've been trying to complain about for decades. I mean, I was 12 years old when I realized how screwed up our system was. Try learning how to word it in the proper terminology and say, like, look, y'all are stupid for doing this. I mean, I caught on to the propaganda in the history books in middle school. Like, I've been literally watching this, and everybody told me I was crazy, I was wrong, I was stupid, I'm paranoid, and almost everything I've predicted has been happening. America is still stuck in this somewhat closed mindset. 2 pieces. Oh, can I have it on a plate? Pretty please? I'm Oh my god, my daughter's bringing me cookies. There we go.
Oh, it's 3 pieces now.
Okay, it broke apart. I can live with that. Thank you, my darling daughter. Let these cool now. Okay. So, yeah, it's definitely a system that, a lot of people have complained about, but nobody steps up and runs to be a politician to make it better. Because most of the time, politicians is just a bureaucracy of run your mouth and nothing ever gets done. We need to fix our entire system and get us back on track before we can start being a world leader again. I'm just frustrated with it. So, let's hit play, try to get through these last 5 minutes.
Times more ships than we are. Remember, we built.
Miss D, are you back? Uh-oh. I don't hear Miss D. Uh-oh. Is this a I can't hear you, but you can hear me thing? Uh-oh. Oh, she left. She's coming back in. Okay. If I still can't hear her, it means I gotta leave and come back. All right. Until she comes back, here's play.
The largest navy in World War II that turned out by 1945 larger than all the navies in the world. We were building a Liberty or Freedom mercantile vessel, big 10, 12,000 ton vessels every 5 days. We built 3,000 of them. We built 120 carriers of different classifications.
Thank you, Art, for letting me know.
We were the shipbuilder, now China is. But when you actually look at our fleets, we still have 11 fleet carriers and Army groups, Navy groups around them. There are over 100,000 tons. They're all nuclear. China has 2. and it's building a third. We have about 85 to 87 submarines. They have about 60, but every one of ours is nuclear, not theirs. They only have about 6 or 7. I don't want to go back and look at the 2020 elections especially, but there's some developments in the news this week that suggest that we might. Remember, the left said that anybody who had doubts about the balloting or the procedures or the change in laws of voting in 2020 was an election denialist. And they always cited Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood, kind of conspiracy theorists that were saying computers were communicating with China or Venezuela. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about the fact that in 2020, 158 million people voted. 4 years later, only 155. That's only happened, I think, 2 or 3 times in American history where 4 years later, fewer people voted. But the country grew by 11 million people. So that was kind of odd that we went from a 11 million increase in population, but we decreased by 3 million voters. The other thing that was very odd was that traditionally we only had about 40% of people voting before election day, either through mail-in balloting or early balloting. And that was very apparent in 2018. When a traditional 35 to 40%, depending on the state, did not vote on election day. But given the changes that were democratically inspired on election day in 2020, 70% of the people had already voted, and about 55 to 60% of those, even higher in some states, were Democrats. If you look at all of these statistics on economics, they have 1.4 billion people. We have about 335, 340 million people, but we produce 1.5 times of knowledge.
Is Ms. D in? Hello? All right. Can anybody hear D?
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Oh my God. Wow. That came through loud and clear.
You can. You can hear me
Okay.
now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, we're good.
I don't think D can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay.
I
All
can
right.
hear you.
But now we've got the lag.
I can hear you. Oh, wow. Oh.
That's
why
what
not?
the
Why
5-second
not?
lag.
It's freaking Friday. Yeah. How long? How long?
5 seconds.
Got it.
I'm going to hit play.
Nominal GDP that's China. So one American produces 1.5 times more goods and services than his 4 Chinese counterparts. If you look at per capita income, we're still ranked 6th in the nation, in the world. China's 73. Americans have a lot more purchasing power per capita than Chinese. So let me put this all together in conclusion. China is ascendant and we are static. Trump comes in and he's looking at things at home that will restore our global preeminence. Fiscal discipline, secure borders, merit-based education, energy development. And he says right now, we still have the lead and we will maintain this lead. But if we continue down the trajectory we're on, we're going to be in big trouble. Final note. We have 5,500 deliverable nuclear weapons. China has about 500, but they're building 6 or 7 a month, and they want to get up to 1,000 in 5 years and then keep going. So what Trump is doing again is he's saying right now our system is much superior: energy, agriculture, productivity, GDP, per capita income. But the trends in the future are not good, and if we don't change, our rival will dominate the world, and I'm not going to let that happen on my watch. And I think that explains a lot of his otherwise sometimes inexplicable worries from Greenland to Panama to the border to our universities. A couple of other questions that I've had. We haven't run a trade surplus since 1975, 50 years. So it wasn't suddenly we woke up and said, it's unfair, we want commercial justice. No, we've been watching this happen for 50 years. It's been going on. And no president, no administration, no Congress in the past has done anything about it. done anything about what? Leveling tariffs on our products that we don't level on theirs. It was all predicated in the post-war period. We were so affluent, so powerful. Europe, China, Russia was in shambles that we had to take up the burdens of reviving the economy by taking great trade deficits. 50 years later, we have been deindustrialized. And the countries who did this to us by these unfair and asymmetrical tariffs did not fall apart. They did not self-destruct. They apparently thought it was in their self-interest. If anybody calibrates the recent GDP growth of India or Taiwan or South Korea or Japan, they seem to have some logic to it. There's a final irony. The people who are warning us most vehemently about this tariff quote the Smoot-Hawley Act of 1930. But remember something. That came after the onset of the Depression, after the stock market crashed in 1929. That law was not passed until 1930. It was not really implemented to 31. And here's the other thing that we're conveniently not reminded of. We were running a surplus. That was a preemptive punitive tariff on our part against other countries. We had a trade surplus, and it was not 10 or 20%. Some of the tariffs were 40 and 50%. And again, it happened after the collapse of the stock market. In conclusion, don't you find it very ironic that Wall Street is blaming the Trump tariffs for heading us into a recession, if not depression, when the only Great Depression we've ever had was not caused by tariffs, but by Wall Street?
Interesting. I'm going to give it a few seconds so Dee can chime in if she wants to.
Very. I'm done with this part, Crazy Bee. We can keep moving on.
Well, the next one is Liberal Hive
I
Mind.
see our chat has been active. However, I can't read it.
Mostly
Okay.
they're just letting us know whether they can hear us or not.
Okay.
Except Art says, I don't know what China is ascendant, but they may, whoops, be after Trump hoses the global trade system for a year or so. We shall see. We shall see. This is the liberal hive mind one where the secretary of whatever the heck that is, the trade thing or whatever, he's going to talk for a little bit in here too. If I remember right, Smoot Hawley may not have caused the Great Depression, but it certainly didn't help. I think the idea was to stimulate jobs at home. Not sure it worked. Oh, that's the problem with some things. You never
So
know.
then, wait, well, right. And that's the issue that we're having right now, correct? We think that something may work, but it might not, just like it did back then. So it's all a risk, it's a chance, but it is in this particular case something different that nobody has done before. And all we can do is hope that it works. And as you said, Crazy Bee, it is something that is this is not a short-term fix. This is long-term, and the United States has always been short-term. What can I get quick? How can I make these quick, rich schemes? How can I make quick, fast money? And we've never played that long-term game. Just as an HR person, the people that had the ability to take advantage of the company's contribution to 401k, for example. Many people did not take advantage of that. And the company would say, for example, pay 25 cents for every dollar you contributed up to $2,000. 25 cents of contributions given to you by your bank, and nobody took advantage of it. Nobody even contributed $1,000. For me to get them to contribute $200
to $500, it was like I was twisting their arm. So to me, this is kind of proof that the American people have never been prepared for long term. But also realize that I would say, I got laid off in 98 from the city. And up until that point, city government was still giving you your pension for however, once upon retirement. You didn't have to contribute anything towards your pension plan. And slowly but surely, 401ks and other plans eventually rolled into various other companies. Many companies provided pension plans to their employees. So once the 401ks came in and companies had the ability to save money from pensions, employees never got the hang of, I'm responsible for my long-term future in my retirement. Social Security probably isn't going to be there, or if it is, it's probably going to be low. So I have to put a lot of money away for my golden years. And that transition from, I'd say, the early 2000s up till now, that's only been a 25-year period where I think particularly the boomers were unprepared for what happened. And I also believe that the younger generation doesn't understand the value in, taking, 401ks and IRAs seriously, that they're the ones that, have to prepare themselves for the future. So because of just that as an example, can you imagine flipping something over to tariffs for the whole country and view it kind of like that? You that for knowing what the hell we've been doing, and nobody has done anything about it. And now we have one person that is. And I don't know if it is the correct answer or not. But again, I'm asking, where are any other plans brought forward? I haven't seen them by anybody, right or left.
Well, and I'll say I definitely had to push Danny to do his 401k and keep it. It was a struggle to get him to do that. It was like pulling teeth, but I understand long term where he's more of the generation, or well, he's older than me by 10 years, but he was still I want more of my paycheck and not thinking about saving for the future. So I 100% get that because I go through it every paycheck. Well, I'd have more money if we weren't paying into this. And I'm like, well, that's for when you retire. So I get it. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. Because this lag is a goofy thing. So let's hit play, and D, if you have something, just wait 5 seconds, and um then if I'm silent or say something, and then I'll wait 5 seconds to give it time to get to you. So we'll work with the lag.
Scream lag.
All right, let's hit play.
Start off with the first story here, because again, they're telling you that China's winning. But how exactly is China winning when BRICS nations are now siding with the United States and turning against China? Just take a look at the headline. After India settled on a final agreement with the United States on a trade deal, which was just announced yesterday, we're now learning that part of that agreement has India applying a 12% import tariff on cheap Chinese steel. So it seems as though it's exactly like I've been saying. Donald Trump is pulling strategic economic partners and allies closer to us and simultaneously against China. He's helping realign global trade away from China, not toward it. But again, just exists on social media and you probably don't even know this is happening, first off. And secondly, know what you're probably being bombarded with are all these claims that Donald Trump is backing off of China. That couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, take a look at what Scott Bessent just said during his speech at the Institute of International Finance.
China, in particular, is in need of a rebalancing. Recent data shows the Chinese economy tilting even further away from consumption toward manufacturing. China's economic system, with growth driven by manufacturing exports, will continue to create even more serious imbalances with its trading partners if the status quo.
Right now.
Oh,
I'm on my podcast.
D, we're getting your phone call.
All right, we're going to take them with us. Love
Okay,
you.
bye.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm going to go back to play. Sorry about that. I just didn't
I'm
know it was
sorry.
coming through. Well, I heard it
Go
coming
ahead.
through, but I felt I would tell you. All right.
Is allowed to continue. China's current economic model is built on exporting its way out of its economic troubles. It's an unsustainable model that is not only harming China, but the entire world. China needs to change. The country knows it needs to change. Everyone knows it needs to change, and we want to help it change because we need rebalancing too. China can start by moving its economy away from export overcapacity and towards support.
I actually got to agree with MJ on this one. In the 80s, company and employee loyalty changed. No more 20 years and a gold watch and a retirement income. More was put on the employee. And that's where people stopped caring about working for their companies. I remember company picnics where my dad used to work. Every year we would go to the beach just before just around the middle end of July, beginning of June, I guess, June or end of June, beginning of July, I would say. We would all go for these company picnics, and it was a fun way to bring the group together and create that family friendship in a work environment. We don't see that anymore. And if you do, you got to wonder what your boss is conniving and scheming about. Because 9 times out of 10, they're doing something wrong if they're going to all of a sudden throw a company party. It's like, wait a minute. Why are you doing this? What are you trying to hide us from? And so it is messed up. Well, Trump claimed we're talking with China, but China says there's no talks, so I'm not sure what to believe. Yeah, this is again one of those things that we should take into consideration. A deal isn't a deal until the ink on the contract is dried. I agree. Dee, did you have anything to add on this?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit play again then. And we'll try to get through this before we end the podcast in about 20 minutes or so.
Supporting its own consumers and domestic demand. Such a shift would help with global rebalancing that the world desperately needs.
And he didn't end there. He also put the IMF on notice.
Here in the United States, we know we need to get our fiscal house in order. The last administration ran up the largest peacetime deficit in our nation's history. The current administration is committed to fixing this. We are open to critique, but we will not abide the IMF failing to critique the countries that most need it, principally surplus countries. In line with its core mandate, the IMF needs to call out countries like China that have pursued globally distorted policies and opaque currency practices for many decades. I also expect the IMF to call out unsustainable lending practices by certain creditor countries.
Yeah, does that sound like an administration that's caving to China, that's surrendering in the trade war? Give me a frickin' break. These clowns in the media are purposely distorting what's going on here. It's absolutely wild how literally the exact opposite of whatever the media is saying is actually what's true. And it's not just this notion that Trump is backing down on China, backing down on the tariffs. It's also on the issue of isolation. Scott Besson put it best.
I wish to be clear. America first does not mean America alone. To the contrary, it is a call for deeper collaboration and mutual respect among trade partners. Far from stepping back, America First seeks to expand U.S. leadership in international institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. By embracing a stronger leadership role, America First seeks to restore fairness to the international economic system.
Again, exactly like we've been saying in practice, it also seems like that's exactly what's happening considering India's latest move. But if you listen to the media, Donald Trump just wants to isolate America. Not true. He's simply using American leverage, not to isolate America, but to strengthen our bonds and relationships with good trading partners. And then on the other end, he's not backing down from China. No, he's forming these alliances and these allegiances and then turning up the heat on China. But of course, they're not reporting on any of that. No, they're just playing this one clip. That's it, in order to build their whole argument.
Are you going to play hardball with them? Are you going to mention COVID?
Well, I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to mention COVID. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to play hardball with China. I'm going to play hardball with you, President Xi. No. We're going to be very nice. They're going to be very nice. And we'll see what happens. But ultimately, they have to make a deal because otherwise they're not going to be able to deal in the United States.
Donald Trump suggests a little bit of a softened stance on China, and they're telling you, oh, he's given up, it's over, you can't mess with the Chinese. Again, complete Chinese propaganda. But that one clip is essentially their whole argument. It's a joke, and if you know anything about Donald Trump, if you've been following his tactics, this is typical Trump. This is what he always does. He applies the pressure, he applies some heat, and then he backs off a little bit and creates a window of opportunity for negotiation. He's not giving up, he's showing his willingness to actually strike a deal. He's offering an olive branch, a little bit of good faith, and telling the Chinese, look, this is your opportunity. We'll back off a little bit and let's get to the table and negotiate something here. But the media takes this and then totally spins it, omits all the key context, and of course the most important context, Donald Trump's track record and strategies when it comes to negotiations. I mean, this is literally the art of the deal in real time. This is exactly what he does, on and off. And the idea that he's backed off, China won, that's basically what people are saying, is ridiculous, considering he said this during that same event.
We'll see what happens, but ultimately they have to make a deal because otherwise they're not going to be able to deal in the United States. So we want them involved, but they have to, and other countries have to make a deal. And if they don't make a deal, we'll set the deal because we're the ones that set the deal. Scott and Howard and myself and others, we're going to be setting the deal. And it'll be a fair deal for everybody. And it'll be, I think it's a process that's going to go pretty quickly. We've spoken to many, many countries. We're getting their views on things. You know, there are a lot of things. They have VAT taxes. They have everything you can have. Don't forget, as an example, the European Union was set up to take advantage of the United States. That's why it was set. And they've done that, but they're not doing that anymore.
Does that sound like caving to you? No, he's dropping the frickin' hammer. He's offering them an opportunity and saying, look, you might have an opportunity to make a deal here, but if you don't, we'll set the deal. That sounds like a pretty tough stance. That sounds like a threat, to be honest, rather than Trump surrendering. I mean, what was trending the other day was Trump is chickening out. Absolutely unreal. So really quick, let's just do a little recap here. India's made a deal with the US, and they're now slapping tariffs on China. The Trump administration is turning up the heat through international bodies like the IMF. It seems as though US influence is expanding and not shrinking. China is looking increasingly isolated, weak, and panicked. I mean, keep in mind, what Donald Trump is currently doing by pulling in allies and turning them against China is basically exactly what China's been trying to do.
Hold on, let me read this. The Chinese don't have to make a deal. It depends on whether they are willing to take a hit and see how long it takes before Trump blinks, and he will blink when his popularity tanks. We will see. Again, we're not sure.
I disagree with that statement. Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I
Art
mean, so
and
far
Art
it's
had
been
made a previous
interesting.
comment that, hold, yeah, hold on one second, Crazy B. Art had made a comment that Trump says one thing and a couple days later, somebody in his cabinet says another. And I don't deny that. But if you follow him, there is sometimes a method to the madness. And I've worked for bosses like Trump, and uh, things are always in play or in motion, or things are behind the scenes that you might not see or be privy to that are occurring, that is what they're ultimately after. So what Trump may say or what Scott might say is the truth to probably the majority of the extent, but we're never going to know specifically what each country's deal is. We're not behind those closed doors, so we don't know what is being said. And trust me, with each deal that's being made, uh, there are specifics that go with that. I've worked in manufacturing where there's been different companies. You would think everybody would be treated the same, but they are not. And that could be for various reasons, who holds what, uh, specific product or steel or some type of mineral that we were after, maybe certain amount of plastics that we looked at. Um, I don't disagree, Art, but again, if you don't believe that there was mixed messaging in everything that has preceded Trump, you'd be remiss. And that's the problem that I have with everybody ganging up on Trump. I told you, I'm not a Trumpster. There's shit that comes out of his mouth. There's stuff that he does that I disagree with. However, the pile up on him for every little thing he does, he takes his zipper down and pees wrong at the urinal, makes headline news. Because his feet weren't spread apart enough or some shit like that. Uh, every little thing he does is a problem, but you have to look at what has happened in the past. And the past has been just as much as a problem, and nobody was ever called out for it. And why was that? It was the mainstream media, it was the educational system, it was the bureaucrats, it was the deep state, it was the banking system. I mean, I could go on and on. So he's the first one, again, that's the wrecking ball that nobody likes, that has the big mouth, that can be considered obnoxious. But we have to take a chance on something because we're not headed in the right direction. And I'm not saying, I'm praying that this works. I mean, we already have countries at the table. Hopefully, China's going to come round. And if they don't, I don't know what that means. Hopefully, like I said, why aren't we making American flags in America? Why do they have Chinese stickers on them? And we could go on about that, but what else do you have to say, Crazy B? And then we'll continue the video.
Mostly that I just hope this is right. And Art says I have called out every president since Reagan. And I was born under the Reagan administration, so I can't really comment on that. And I wasn't allowed to vote under Bush Jr. or Clinton because I was still a minor. Or not Bush Jr., Bush Sr. So I can only say on the ones I was allowed to vote on, but I can sit back and nitpick the crap out of these presidents going further back than that. And when you look at it historically, and it's again, I don't always blame the president. I
Right,
go after Congress more than I do the president because the president can't do jack shit unless Congress backs him up. It does not become a permanent change until
right.
Congress backs them up. So
100.
it's just again more of that headache. It's more
Right. Look at Trump's yeah. Look at look at Trump's first term, right? We had the House, we had the Senate. What got done?
jack shit.
Thank you.
But Obama couldn't
All
do
right, go
half the
ahead,
shit
hit
he
play.
wanted to do because Congress also said it wasn't right. So it's Trump's not the first president that has been blocked by Congress. There have been others. But Obama really was doing things illegally. He was trying at least.
Right.
So I can say that. But again, it
Right,
all boils
right.
down to they got to work together. They all got to work together. So, we got 30 seconds left, so I'm going to go ahead and hit play. Let me give it 6 seconds give or take. Okay.
But even their own neighboring countries in Asia essentially told them to screw off. So Trump's doing what China wishes they could do. Then at the same time, he's turning the heat down a little bit to alleviate some economic pressure, while also opening up a window of opportunity to China to negotiate, but then also hitting them with a not so veiled threat. And all the while, the mainstream media is telling you that Trump folded. Unfrickin' believable. The exact opposite is true. China is being squeezed from all angles. They have very little leverage here. Nobody is partnering with them to take on Donald Trump. It's simply not happening. And that's pretty much the update that I got for
Art's got something to add, and that was the end of the video. Art says we had the House, we had the Senate, and chaos. We still have the House, the Senate, and we have chaos. Not sure the ending will be any different, especially since history likes to repeat itself. Maybe we
I
learned.
don't disagree. Right, and I don't disagree with that. Yep, I don't disagree. And I think that's why we see so many of the executive orders that Trump has put through. And that's why I'm so pissed off that they're not picked up by Congress and immediately a page should be running that down the street for signature. And it should be put right through as a single bill item.
Well, and again, but with the problem is Congress needs to make sure it's actually constitutionally legal. That's why there's so many court cases right now, too.
Mm. I would think they would have had a thought of some of that ahead of time. Just like the Democrats have all of their lawsuits, 165 of them prepared and ready to go at any moment? Like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, because again, Trump gave away his game plan in advance.
That's what's that yeah.
So hard to
He
say.
yeah, he told them ahead of time. He told them what was gonna yeah, he told them during the campaign, and you know damn well there was meetings and discussions of what was gonna transpire, and those people that were in charge had a responsibility to see that this stuff got done.
Art wants
You
to
know,
add, please. Oh,
the Democrats certainly did.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Art wanted to add, please understand, I want better things, but I've been doing this for too long to see how it's supposed to work with the current policies.
I agree. I don't disagree.
And
I agree with this statement, and I don't disagree that, you know,
MJ says it's a global fascist and
MJ
the uniparty. Well, we weren't supposed to have political parties according to the founding fathers.
fresh Right. It's been frustrating. It's extremely frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Very
And
much.
this is just one area. You know what I mean? This is just the the tariffs are just one area of the government that where everything that is touched is a frickin' mess. And how does it get fixed?
Not easily.
And we say, "Oh, send the right person to Congress." Well, maybe you might get one or two, and what happens to them? They do all this work and they get outvoted. None of their bills get passed because we still have, dippity-doos running the show.
Mm-hmm.
We have AOC becoming the potential 2028 presidential candidate
Oh, she's
with
just
a
replacing
possibility
Bernie.
of winning. So says, I know, I know. She's going to be the younger version of Bernie Sanders. Yep. And you don't think that people are going to flock to her?
I think they're idiots if they
I don't
do.
know. Yeah, well, we'll be in for some deep shit then.
Ugh.
Anyway, we are 7 minutes early, so before let me read what Art has to say. The founders acknowledged that parties would
Form.
I'm assuming that's form, and that wouldn't be good. They were more pessimistic than most people realize.
Brent. Brent says D. I
You know
hope
what,
she
Brent?
wins. Go
I
ahead.
see. Mhm. Yeah. No, that's okay. Brent's gonna get his coming up. If she wins, Brent, look out. We're all in trouble.
Now
But
I agree with
so we're
MJ on this.
7 minutes left, I believe.
The
Mhm.
state assemblies need to come back.
Go ahead. Yes. Mhm. And we actually are going to try to get somebody that is in charge of a state assembly and provide some information regarding that. That would be I think, a one session
Mm-hmm.
time, but we'll work on trying to get that together as well for you. No, I did not get my bullet points typed up either. I'll try to do that over the weekend, and then everything will be completed on our economic uh, 2 weeks. But I do want to remind everybody to please follow, like, subscribe, comment if you so choose. Crazy B, I did not see the little Discord come by. Did you?
Yeah, in the bot, in
In
the
the
chat.
chat?
Yep. I saw it come through a couple
Okay.
times.
I missed them. I keep missing them. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why, but I keep missing them. But if you haven't done so already, if you would like to join the Discord, that's where we continue conversations and have further discussions, deeper discussions, argue discussions, agree discussions. Uh, but it's a good group of people that we have over there, so feel free to join in. The bot has been in there and will give you information on how to join the Discord. With that being said, Friday evening is over. Sunday's planned from 3 to 5 Eastern Standard Time is to catch up on everything that we have in our files that we said were going to be for Sundays or for today that we have not yet gotten to. And there's one thing in particular the Crazy Bee wants to share. So, Crazy Bee, do you want to mention that, or they'll just have to be surprised?
I'm still confused at what it is. I'm not sure. Um,
Oh, okay. I thought you told me that's funny because I thought you told me you had something you wanted to share on Sunday.
oh, that's that video from the border with that judge.
Oh, oh yeah, Oh,
That's
okay,
what that was.
Grasshopper. Finally, you remembered. Okay.
Hey,
Well, you
I've got
now told
allergies
everybody.
fogging my brain.
Okay, so
I
that's
got
the video for you.
allergies.
That's okay.
uh,
Hey, at least you remembered. Finally, it came out. It's like, D, what are you talking about? I have no clue what you're saying. It's okay, Crazy B. You can be forgetful a little bit. All right, so
uh,
she's going to be sharing a video about a judge and the border and whatever else is going on there. I don't know what it is, so I'll be surprised along with you. And the rest, as we said, is cleaning out the files because we have a lot of stuff in there. So uh, we hope that you can join us Sunday, 3 to 5. And no, here's Art. Wait, put that back up. What does Art have to say?
oh, there.
Nobody ever agrees with me on Discord. Wait, he goes, nobody ever agrees with me on Discord. I think I need to start drinking again. I was more fun when I was drinking, LOL. Well, as I said, Art, I have yet to play catch up due to babysitting requirements. So if I don't agree with anything that you say on the Discord, I'll start drinking with you. How's that?
That'll be entertaining. And MJ's right. We do need 38 assembled
Yes.
states, but most of them have we only have I think 11 or 15 states with assemblies right now. And that's again rights that we've given up.
Yeah, it's small. Yep. And I think a lot of people just don't know about it and they're probably afraid of it.
Mhm. They don't know what to do.
But we'll provide the information and I exactly, but I think it's extremely beneficial.
Mhm.
You know, you don't have to act upon it just to have the knowledge that uh maybe in the future it becomes beneficial down the road somehow, or you make a comment to somebody about it and they investigate it and they desire to do something with it. I think that's where that type of communication can be beneficial. So if you spend a couple hours learning about something and, it's not your cup of tea, well, if you share it with somebody, such as today's episode, uh, if you didn't get anything out of it, or even if you did, please share it with other people. We are trying to build up our YouTube channel, as you know, with our numbers. But, what you don't get today, you might get, several years down the road, and one day you might say, "Hey, remember them two crazy people on that video that one time?"
That
Yeah,
lasted a month.
we'll come in your head one day. Don't worry. Yeah, yeah, a month. Isn't that the truth? That's funny.
Oh,
Hopefully they don't all go that way. You know that. Hopefully
fingers
we don't get
crossed.
caught in these rabbit holes. Because we have programming what? We have programming booked at what, 6 weeks?
Give or take, yeah.
About 6 weeks, I'd say. Could you imagine? Yeah, could you imagine? We could take that 6 weeks and turn that into till the fall, actually.
Yeah.
Uh, that would, yeah, we could conceivably. There's enough information out there. Wow. I mean,
Mhm.
it is the topics, and I think that's where the difference between us and other creators are, that you're just going to see a video, one thing. You're going to see one document. You might see one statement, but we like to engage with the chat. Crazy being ourselves, as I said, none of this is scripted. So it's raw, it's authentic. We don't know what the other one's going to say about a subject. So, it could be on. Like, for example, the women in combat, which should have been a 5 minute little segment, turned into be the whole 2 hours and still never really got resolved. So, when we have these discussions, it can just turn into something more than what we've ever imagined or what we ever planned out. Okay, here's Art. My rabbit holes have rabbit holes, and I'm on a list that is on a list of its own as a result. LOL. Oh yeah. We're in some deep rabbit holes.
Oh
We
yeah.
don't even have ladders anymore to get out of. But anyway, we're over the 2 hour mark.
Yep.
And I'm done, Crazy B. I'm gonna go eat dinner. That
All right.
you know what that phone call was? Was to go back up and babysit. Yeah, was to go back up and babysit. And I'm like, no, thank you.
I'm in the middle of something. I'll be there later.
Anyway, everybody have a good weekend. Yeah. All right. Everybody have a good weekend and be safe. Crazy B, you're in charge.
Yeah, thanks to the 5 second lag. I'll go ahead and close it out. We can always chat on Discord later. That way there's no crazy lag in the conversation. You go get dinner. Everyone else, stay sane, stay safe, stay sober, and we'll catch y'all Sunday. Because today's Friday. That's right. Sunday.
On
So
Sunday.
all
Yep.
right, everybody. Peace out.
Have a good one. Bye.